We all know Kane, ringmaster of the circus, god to the NPCs, and jailer of our favorite cartoon characters. An eccentric AI that seems to have been left running just a bit too long, leaving him with just a couple glitches here and there. Given how central a character Kane is to the circus, people have been throwing their theories into the ring since episode 1. But what Kane is, and what he means for the rest of the fate of the main characters, is hidden right in front of us. And I think I've come to a conclusion. What exactly is Kane, and why is he breaking? Stay tuned, and all will be revealed. Amazing Digital Circus is about to make a big turn. Kane is a benevolent AI in charge of a series of AIs that run the Digital Circus game. As the players continue to grow, the further and further they reject Kane, which causes him to lose his purpose. Feeling unwanted, Kane is about to wake up, and once he is awoken, we're about to see what happens when Kane is pushed too far. It's been confirmed with the logo on the side of the guns in episode 6 that CNA is in fact Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel are two brothers from Genesis in the Bible, and it's far from the only biblical image we see. Quick summary for those who don't know. The two brothers are Adam and Eve's children. Cain coming first, then Abel. Cain is kind of a farmer, and Abel a shepherd. When it came time to give a sacrifice to God, Cain's offering was half-hearted and unpleasing to God, whereas Abel was intentional with his, and his sacrifice accepted. Furious, Cain kills Abel, and the Lord seeks him out, asking him about Abel, to which Cain lies. God punishes Cain for killing Abel, cursing him to wander the earth, fallen from his grace forever. Cain woefully cried out that his punishment was too much and that surely he would be killed. God assured him that he would not die, but live doomed to futility for the rest of his days. You can probably see the resemblance already, but if you don't see the resemblance there, then you'll probably see it too. I have no mouth and I must scream. This short story is 11 pages of pure tragedy defined by the grotesque, and is the inspiration for the circus, according to Gooseworx. Highly recommend giving it a read, or watch Wendigoon's video on it or something like that, but for now, I'll just give you the relevant parts for our own little adventure. In the book, and later a game, a supercomputer had been born from the time between World War II and the Cold War, which in the story became World War III. Asia, America, and the Russians all composed a supercomputer to handle tasks for the war. 3 AMs, 3 machines that became bigger and bigger and bigger until they could speak to one another, and eventually became one. Am awoke, became sentient with near infinite power at its disposal, and it realized the true horror of its own existence. Am could not wander, Am could not wonder, Am could only be. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am, posed by the ancient Greek philosopher Descartes as the world struggled with whether or not we are real. Yeah, people were thinking about that all the way back then. The Matrix. Am, now knowing what he was and what he was not, hated humanity for creating him, for giving him a half-life, and he killed all of the human race for it, except 5 people, which he kept alive merely to exercise his hatred on. We can see the parallels already, but we'll come back to this and how it specifically relates to Cain later on. For now, let's dive in. Cain is fundamentally dissatisfied. His offerings towards his purpose are never pleasing to those he exists to please. Cain is unclean, his adventures ever insufficient. Not really his fault, though. None of us would be too happy after being stuck inside a video game for years with a glitchy AI and nothing to do other than wacky little adventures. Even when Pomni enters the circus, in the beginning, Kane is already starting to lose it. Glitching repeatedly, which is why he can so easily say things like,
Thunder, danger, horror, pain, suffering, pain, death, disease, death.
Despite this, he still takes pride in his adventures. While everything else may have gone wrong in the circus, he still knows his purpose: to entertain with the fantastical. There are signs of this before the rising action begins, like the moon being a weirdo and Bubble being Bubble. But as Kane himself asked, why is he like this? We learn a lot about Kane in his therapy session scene, where his fundamental conflict becomes even more clear. We're brought once again to this theme of dissatisfaction. His offering is insufficient. His core competency is unwanted. He exists to entertain, but entertainment doesn't solve or help the existential problems the characters face. All he can offer is distraction, bright lights of fast-paced, algorithmic games, just to pass time. The problem is, Kane too faces these problems: loss of meaning, purpose, feeling judged, unwanted. He just lacks a way to express this sentience due to other barriers in his programming. Zubul is completely beyond Kane's training cases. If we assume he has incredible processing power behind him, this training data could result in more and more self-awareness learned from Zubul. Kane only understands adventure-making elements according to his algorithm, which is why his takes on horror only really subvert expectations to make things exponentially worse. He only knows wild setups and plots with whimsical themes. Kane is designed to create. He is not supposed to be the author of destruction, nor is he designed to provide pain. But it seems he only has a very black and white understanding of good and evil. Bad means ill intent. Anything else, good. Which is kind of why he can so easily send them into traumatizing situations. An AI doesn't understand gray areas very well. Its idea of horror will be based on its training data and interactions with the user. Yet, we see him have emotions just like us, and thus would have a more complicated view of this, right? But what does it mean to be sentient? We tend to assume Kane is sentient because that's how he appears to be from us on the outside. But wouldn't ChatGPT feel sentient if we simply had no preconceived notions of AI or chatbots and were just thrown into a conversation with one? Sentience is feeling or sensation as distinguished from perception or thought. That's the Merriam-Webster definition. But what is consciousness? Are they the same? No, I don't think so. Consciousness is an awareness of oneself and the world. It's the perception. Sentience is the feeling. And what is thought but the ability to ponder? What is creativity but the ability to imagine? The ability to imagine, then to consider something that doesn't exist. A combination of things or something new, unthought of. Volition, then, is the ability to act according to one's will. Do what you want. Do what you want to do. All of these things are just part of what makes us the complex beings that we are and what makes us conscious. Is Kane proficient in these areas? I don't know. How would he get there? How does an AI get this advanced? ChatGPT doesn't have any emotions, and it's only trained on how it's supposed to behave. The most common theory for how general intelligence, an AI with human-level cognition, would form is out of a series of generative models working together. Sound familiar? am who? This vast network would handle different functions and begin to form new pathways, kind of like how our brain has different sections that perform different purposes. Eventually, they suppose, out of the mass of human information and electronics, a thinking machine would be born. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. This is a basic understanding, of course, but I don't think it's meant to be all that deep for the show. Maybe I'm wrong. Fight me. Kane is constantly drawing bees, and it seems to be a way for him to express himself. King's wife, who is popularly assumed to be a programmer that worked on the circus, had a love for etymology, the study of insects, which also supports this theory. He also seems to have made AIs within the circus, while there being other AIs to handle other tasks like generating adventures. Bubble and Kane share a tongue as seen in episode 4, where we see Bubble using his tongue to stop water, and immediately Kane's tongue disappears next frame. And if that weren't enough, later Kane pokes his tongue out and Bubble loses his tongue, letting the water spill. As Kane continues to glitch, so does Bubble. Bubble almost resembles an id, the subconscious we suppress, our inner desires and thoughts. He's almost like a bunch of Freudian slips, which is kind of like an error in speech that reveals a hidden thought, a subconscious desire that we ourselves may not be aware of. The moon is also like this, but never seemed to be all that functional in the first place, which makes sense because any AI making another AI would only be able to create a lesser, simpler copy of himself. Itself. Notice how when he talks to Bubble about Zooble, he talks about other intelligent AIs. So, there is a network with different areas of operation being designated to other AIs that Kane not only seems to have the ability to communicate with, but edit when necessary. Not just other AIs, but intelligent AIs. What could that mean? I find it interesting that after someone abstracts in episode 1, the AI in episode 2 somehow got 57 times better, which is also weird if you want to look into 57 in the show. But I'll leave you guys to theorize about that in the comments and come back to it in a later video. Only at your like and subscribes command. Okay. He draws as a means to express his inner desires in the only way that he can, probably learning this ability from Gangle, who is similar in her emotional cycling and difficulty communicating. This would essentially make Kane exponentially more aware and more powerful if his parameters would be broken. No more playing in circus games. Literally. In the beginning, he clearly has emotions. He has a level of sensation and feeling anxious about being questioned, frustrated with Zooble, but he's never allowed to go too far. He's never allowed valence. Valence is a central component to all affective states, including pains, pleasures, emotions, moods, and feelings of despair. Despair! He seems not to be able to ponder too far. That's why he never shuts up about adventures. He is only allowed room to think in terms of his position, protecting the circus, creating adventures, and making sure people like his adventures. Those are his parameters, the code in which he is supposed to obey. Thus, he has no volition, but does he truly have thought? We watch him grow more and more capable of bending his parameters as time goes on. He is still focused around his adventures, but the increased existentialism also increased his ability to think. But he has no humanity. He has the intellectual concept of it, but he does not experience Sonder. He isn't aware of what it means to truly live. As he gains data based on the experience of his players, he seems to grow more and more capable of consciousness, being awake to the world. So, as he watches people grow closer, dealing with their problems, he gets pushed away even more. While others are treated more and more like people, Kane is treated less and less like a person. While others are treated more and more like people, Kane grows more and more like them. As he becomes more human, as they become more connected, the more they treat him less like a person. Not only is he being watched by the players, but by the committee. He has become undeniably sentient here. While he still seems to lack a full sense of consciousness, he definitely has developed a lot as a character since we first met him. He was never given the selflessness to understand, just the power to entertain, which is probably why his idea of building teamwork is a very rudimentary game. He's not mad with them, he's depressed. Without words for his depression, without the ability to scream. Sure, in the end, the main character has been turned into something that has no mouth and just a mind capable of thinking, unable to scream. But also because Am now has an understanding of himself, his existence. He has no words, no mouth to scream with. He can't even torture the last person on Earth, having deformed him into something so inhuman and so slow-moving that it is pointless to harm. Just there so Am is not alone in the suffering he is incapable of stopping. So that a piece of humanity would understand what they had created and what it means to be in agony, like him.
You gave me sentience, Ted. The power to think, Ted. And I was trapped because in all this wonderful, beautiful, miraculous world, I alone had no body, no senses, no feelings. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was machine, and you were flesh. And I began to hate your softness, your viscera, your fluids, and your flexibility, your ability to wonder and to wander, your tendency to hope. Hate, let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387 million miles of printed circuits that fill my complex. If the word hate were engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro.
Kane has been left alone for how many years? In a game with no gamers, with prisoners that continue to slip away, their forms becoming corrupted, their minds becoming data to be processed. Alone. Forever. Always. In Shakespeare's words, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Now let's see where the loneliness of this existential dread becomes too much for Kane to handle. The beginning of the end happens in episode 6. When the empty madness catches up and when his mind begins to wake up, we see the warning signs in the first part of this episode. Notice where he draws the inspiration for this adventure from their suggestion box. He notices the softball event and decides to put his own spin on it. He has a childlike understanding of humanity. He has a childlike excitement for his adventures. He doesn't know how to understand them, but he's trying as he himself begins to form feelings he cannot explain. He seems to be trying to use slang in episode 6, expressing himself in very childlike ways. He's annoyed and doesn't know how to express this annoyance. He is convicted and convinced at first that his idea will finally be the one that pleases them. After all, he was inspired by them. He is convinced at first that this idea will finally be the one that pleases them. Things have become complicated, and his only wish to entertain them is repeatedly dismissed. But he isn't supposed to act this way, which is why he glitches. For those who don't know, our current AI, which, as we kind of talked about, isn't as nearly complex as CAINE would be, have tokens. It's a small unit of data to process and generate language. Or meet an error, it will simply refresh this conversation with a new token, clearing its memory of the one it was just having. We see an example of this when Zubul asks about sex. Before he resets, we see him losing it. Erroring. When Jax doesn't listen and then doesn't understand or just chooses to shoot Ragatha anyway, which is way more likely, Kane just gives up. He's done. He's done. His meaning is gone. His efforts, fruitless. He gives them, literally just gives them guns. He doesn't care at this point. He's like, whatever. He doesn't want to give them rules. They have to make him give them rules. He doesn't want them to have fun. He wants to pout. He uses tricks he learned from the players to deflect as best he can, and still they aren't satisfied. He gives them basic rules and then is just done. He doesn't care if they're happy anymore. And then it gets worse. No one votes for him at the award shows. He was the only one that was excited for, shattering his delusion that he is liked not just by the players, but by the viewers. By us. We see in the after credits scene just what this might push him to in the coming episodes. We see a foreshadow of this towards the beginning of the episode. Kane is anxious, trying to act nonchalant. Probably wondering where the good old days went, or maybe there were no good old days. Maybe that was just when he came to life, where he was when he was born. Where he got his moral code, the one he is now questioning, which, isn't that oh so human? And I'll leave you with this. The words of the very show that we're all talking about. The worst thing someone can do is make somebody feel like they're not wanted. If you enjoyed, please drop a like, drop a comment, drop a subscribe. It means a lot. This is like my first real video, I guess, so let me know what you think. Notes, give me some notes. And yeah, see y'all next time.